ends his two-day visit. It's the first by a French head of state in more than 20 years. The president hopes to improve economic and political ties after the relationship between Paris and Ankara soured under his predecessor. That's because of Nicolas Sarkozy's opposition to Turkey joining the EU, and a bill on the Armenian genocide didn't help matters. Our team in Istanbul reports now on whether such issues continue to affect relations between France and Turkey.
7 years ago, Hrant Dink was murdered by a Turkish nationalist in the middle of the street in front of his office at the Argos newspaper, where he was editor-in-chief. Today, Robert Koptaş holds his position. Like Dink, he too receives regular death threats for writing about the Armenian question. Despite these pressures, Koptaş opposes laws passed in other countries that forbid the denial of the Armenian genocide.
When such laws are passed in France or other countries, it plays into the hands of Turkish nationalists, because they believe that the whole world has conspired against the Turks to spread what they believe to be a lie.
A similar stance is held by Ankara, which rejects the term genocide. In 1915, the Ottoman Empire was on its last legs. Accused of treason, the Armenian community became victims of deportations and large-scale massacres. France officially calls this a genocide. 2 years ago, it passed a bill forbidding denial of the term genocide, which provoked a serious crisis between the countries. Business was the first casualty, with a boycott aimed at French companies and brands in Turkey. Tensions were calmed after the Constitutional Council struck down the law, allowing commerce to recover. France is Turkey's 8th largest export market, and many young French entrepreneurs, like Remy, have come to Turkey to conquer this emerging economy.
Economically speaking, Turkey is perhaps not quite an El Dorado, but for sure a place where one can accomplish a lot. When doing business with Turks, you're exposed to a determined, hard-working state of mind. It's dynamic.
With its fantastic view over the shores of the Bosphorus, Galatasaray University is held in high regard. For many decades, the Turkish elite has been educated at this French-speaking public institution. At a time when English has become the global lingua franca, in Turkey, speaking French remains a mark of distinction.
In Turkey, Galatasaray University is the symbol of French-speaking culture. You could call it its flagship in Turkey. It's not only a university, but also a bridge between France and Turkey, and at the same time, a bridge between Turkey and Europe.
Turkey has officially been a candidate for membership of the European Union since 1999. Its candidacy was blocked by former President Nicolas Sarkozy, for which he is resented by many Turks. If François Hollande decided to lift this blockade, many believe that the Erdogan administration is not sufficiently committed to making the necessary reforms.
Journalists are in jail, political thinkers are in jail, so many people are in jail. It makes you wonder how advanced democracy really is in Turkey. I'm not optimistic.
But for Cengiz Aktar, Turkey's EU membership remains a long-term project that must continue, despite the political turmoil.
Just as you should not judge the European stance based on passing politicians like Nicolas Sarkozy, you should not judge the situation in Turkey or its potential membership of the European Union based on what the government of Mr. Erdogan does or does not achieve.
The West is fascinated by Turkey, a country that is Muslim yet secular. Its economic potential could make it a prized member of a Europe in decline.
And for more on the Franco-Turkish relationship, I'm now joined from Istanbul by Kemal Dervish. He's from the Bosfor Institute, a think tank, and the Brookings Institution. Hello, thank you very much for being with us. Now,
yes,
it might be a little bit too early to tell, but since you're there right now, can I ask, what's the buzz around Hollande's visit? I mean, do you think it'll help improve relations between France and Turkey?
Well, definitely. The very fact that he came after 22 years, of no presidential official visit, there were short kind of non-official visits by others. I think that in itself is very important. I think he behaved in a very warm way. He was careful not to promise things he might not be able to deliver. But I think the atmosphere was excellent. The atmosphere at the dinner with the president and the prime minister were good yesterday. This morning at the university, meetings with business people. It's a difficult moment in Turkey. It's a difficult moment in France. But I think both sides are looking beyond the short term to the structural, long-term interests they have in common in the region, in the Mediterranean, and in Greater Europe. So I think so the visit is positive, although those who expected, all of a sudden France saying we're opening our doors wide open in Europe for Turkish membership tomorrow may be disappointed, of course, but that was never in the cards.
Speaking of interests, who stands to benefit the most from a rapprochement, so to speak? Turkey wants to join the EU, but economically, Turkey has a lot to offer France, doesn't it?
Well, yes, Turkey is a dynamic economy, despite some difficulties now that it shares with other emerging markets related to tapering and other matters. The average growth rate is in the 5 to 6% neighborhood over the last decade. It's a very young population, much younger than those in Europe. It is already, of course, part of the customs unions for many, many years. And I think integration of Turkey into the European space, full integration, would be good for Europe, just as Germany, for example, has derived a lot of advantages with integrating the Central European countries, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Hungary, and the German investments were very important there. France, I think, is looking to Turkey with similar interests, similar integration, and already the French industry, of course, is very active in Turkey, such as the Renault car factories, for example.
Let's talk about Hollande saying yesterday that this issue of becoming a member of the EU should be put to a referendum in France. Of course, it's not just up to the French, and there's been a lot of criticism of the AK party amongst European leaders, hasn't there?
Yes, of course, and then there's worries about the recent developments in Turkey, the infighting inside the governmental camp, and some of the problems we unfortunately still see with press freedoms and quality of democracy, although I think progress has been made, very serious progress has been made over a decade, partly thanks to the European process. The message that at the end of the day it's going to be up to the French people and the Turkish people. The Turkish president said the same thing. He said, let's pursue the negotiations and we will see. We'll go step by step, and as we advance, we will see at the end whether both we in Turkey, the Turkish people, and the French and others will want this union. But let's not prejudge.
How keen are the Turkish people at this point? Are they not put off by the Eurozone crisis?
They're more put off, I think, by Europe's slowness in addressing the negotiations, by messages that Sarkozy gave in a very brusque and not friendly way that Turkey didn't belong in Europe. The Euro crisis showed that Europe perhaps was not as strong as it looked. But on the other hand, Europe still is a very prosperous, large market, a very advanced part of the world economy, an area of peace. There are problems of racism, of some migration tensions and so on. But on the whole, when you look to Europe from Turkey, and particularly the last 2 years, and then you look south to the Middle East and the mess that's there, I think Turkish citizens, Turkish business people, business leaders, small businesses can see the great advantages of being part of the European family and firmly anchored in that family.
Kamal Dervis, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. That's it for Focus. It's time now for a quick break. When we come back, I'll have the headlines for you, and I'll be joined by our international affairs editor, Armin Georgian, for more on that rather frosty EU-Russia summit. Stay tuned for that and plenty more.